Hi there, I'm Joe Ganchi. I've been creating e-learning for 34 years now, and I've been using Adobe Captivate since 2002 when it was called RoboDemo. I've created dozens of projects in that time, and I think I've gotten pretty good at it. I teach it quite often at conferences and also at company sites, so if you need me to come to your site to teach, just let me know. At any rate, I've started a new series now. About every 2 weeks or so, I'm going to be posting a new video in which I'll be answering your questions. Here on the screen, you can see where you can submit your own questions so that I can answer them in the next session. I don't guarantee that I'll always answer every question, just depends on how many I get, but I'll do my best to accommodate everybody's needs. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and look at today's questions one by one. Today we're going to be answering 6 different questions. The first being, Cassie Schauer would like to know how to stop audio from repeating when returning to a slide. Bandy wants to know how to stop playback of videos from causing lags. Bryan Frame is looking to get rid of the playbar, create custom navigation buttons instead. And Gruy needs to allow learners who skip quiz questions to be able to go back and answer those. Shuck is asking how to create a zoom for when the narrator wants to learn to focus on a screen element. And Dickmar Tejada is trying to figure out 2 different things. 1, creating an exam with 10 questions randomly chosen from a pool, and 2, how to resynchronize a bunch of audio in a file after the audio has changed. I'm going to be building these in Captivate, and I'll also post a link to the finished files so you can also have a copy of those. Question number 1 belongs to Cassie Schauer.
Hi Joe, my name is Cassie and I'm a web tech specialist from Wisconsin. I produce responsive Captivate e-learning products to train our members on a variety of HR topics. My question is in regards to audio repeat. I have a slide that is set up as a menu with clickable buttons that takes participants to other slides within the training. There is audio associated with that slide that plays and then pauses until a button is clicked. Throughout the training, participants are directed back to that menu slide to click on other buttons to learn more. My question is, when they are taken back to the main menu slide, is there a way to have the audio not repeated again so that there's no audio played at all? Thank you.
Okay, Cassie, what I've done is I've created 2 slides here. One that has an image from your video here, the first one, and then the second one, of course, has the place that the video says the first one goes to. I do that by having a click box on this one that jumps to slide 2, which is called choice 1, and then on slide 2 I have this return arrow that you had jumping back to slide 1 using a click box. But of course you can use smart shapes, which is normally what I would use, but since I captured the whole image I just threw a click box on there. Okay, now how do we make sure that the audio plays only the first time? To do that, well, if we create an audio file, it's going to go directly onto the timeline. And you know what? I already have done that. But once I did that, I deleted it from the timeline. Why'd you do that, Joe? Well, because when you create the audio and then delete it from the timeline, it's still going to be in your library. And here it is. I renamed it Welcome over here. And the audio plays exactly what's on the screen over here. Click on each button to learn more about a topic. Once complete, click the Finish button. And that's it. So we want to be able to play that, but only the first time that the learner comes to this slide here. So to do that, we really can't have it on the timeline. We could use an action called play audio, but that would be the same thing because it's going to invariably play it every single time. What we want to do instead is to use this action right here called play audio, but within what's called an advanced action. An advanced action, when we click on this, will allow us to create an action. In this case, it's going to be a conditional action because we're going to be playing the audio on a condition. What is the condition? The condition is if it's the first time they've come to the slide here. So to do that, what we'll need to do is to create this conditional action, starting with a name. So let's call this one play once, perhaps. And then down here, what we want to do is to set a condition. Well, the condition requires that we are keeping track of the screen that we're on and whether or not we've seen it before. So to do that, we're going to have a variable. Click on variables here, and we're going to create a new user variable. And you can call it, for instance, it's nice to start with an underscore because then it always appears at the top of the variable list. Underscore played, for instance. Underscore played. So played is just going to keep track as to whether something has been played or not. It's going to start out as 0 because 0 in this case is going to mean that it has not been played yet. So we save that and we close this. And now over here, when we double click and say variable, well, right there at the top is played. So we're going to choose that one. If played is equal to the literal value of 0, which it is initially, remember that, we haven't played anything yet, so it is still 0, then the action is going to be that same old play audio option that we saw earlier. And the audio file we're going to play is this welcome one right here. We click OK. And the last thing we have to do then is to say, well, okay, now that we played the audio, we have to make sure we assign this played variable to a 1. That way, it's not going to play ever again for this student, for this learner during this session. So now I'm going to assign to the variable called underscore played a literal value of 1. So if you think about it, the next time that the learner comes to this slide, it's going to automatically run this conditional action again, but the condition this time will not be true because played is not going to be equal to 0, it's going to be equal to 1. So save as an action and then close it. And over here you'll see that it's automatically been set to execute advanced actions called play once, the one we just created. However, if you've already created other advanced actions in here, then this will probably not be the one that's chosen. You'll probably have to drop this down and choose the right one there. It's a step that's often forgotten because we tend to think of it as automatically being set. But just be careful that it doesn't, that you don't go crazy because you're thinking, why isn't it working? And then all of a sudden you realize, oh, even though I created that action, I haven't set it over here. All right, so let's try this out and see if it works. We'll try this in the browser. Click on each button to learn more about a topic. Once complete, click the Finish button. So we heard the audio. We click, go to that slide. We click to go back. And yay, the audio is not playing. Perfect. Our next question is from Lee Bandy.
Hi, Joe. My name is Lee Bandy, and my question is regarding Captivate 9. I build web-based training, and I just recently inserted a few short video clips from Shutterstock into one of my projects. My question is related to the playback of the published Captivate file, which is loaded into our company LMS. When the playhead enters the slide with the video, there's a short lag before the video starts to play. I dealt with this problem by adding an image element on top of the player window, which fades out a few seconds later when the video starts to play. So I'm wondering, what can be done to avoid this unwanted lag time when a video is embedded on a slide? Thanks for your reply.
Okay, Lee, so we all know that if we grab a video from our hard drive, for instance, and insert it into Captivate, it's going to become part of our file. And whether it's event or multi-slide, doesn't really matter. In the end, it's going to be in our file and way down our file quite a bit in most cases. It all depends, of course, on the size of the video, both the frame size on the screen and the length of the video. So there's some good rules of thumb to follow that will help a little bit. Now, that's not to say that you're never going to see a lag with video. In fact, the solution you came up with, which is sort of grab that first frame and show it as an image until the video starts, it's pretty brilliant. And it's one I've used myself as well at times. But you want to be sure, first of all, that if you bring in a video like this and then start to size it down, for instance, like so, that's not a good thing, because that's telling you right away you don't need to have the video be this big, and you really should resize it in Adobe Premiere or any other video editor so that when you bring it in, it's already the right size. That will cut down on the size of your file, but also it will help the Captivate run more smoothly as well, because not only is it a problem of weight, but it also has to then size it down. Okay, so having said that, there's a couple of other options too. So again, make sure that your frame size is no larger than needed, and make sure that you don't have your video be any larger in terms of bit rate and so on than you need. Let's go take a look at this file right here and see what we can see in there. So I'm going to jump out to my hard drive and go into my media file library. And if we take a look at this video right here and check its properties, for instance, we can see that it is set to 1280 by 720. It's using a data rate of 5,062 kilobits per second, and a bit rate, a total bit rate is the same. Frame rate is 25. That may be overkill. Now, one really interesting thing about this is that if you were to take a video like this and you were to upload it to, say, YouTube, in fact, definitely to YouTube, some interesting things can happen. Well, let's talk about two different things. As you can see, I have already uploaded this video to YouTube. I've set it so that it's not listed, and also that it does allow embedding. What we're going to do with this is then to make sure that, one, let's take a look at the options that we have here. And one very interesting one was told to me by Adobe not too long ago, and I found it to be very helpful. So if we go to the video, and then from there we go to our video manager, which of course, this being my video, I can do that. Once I'm there, if I choose this drop down, I can download my own video. Well, why would I want to do that? Because what I'm going to find is that the video engine that is in YouTube is very, very good. And it has to be, of course, because there are billions of videos on YouTube now. If I take a look then at the two videos, this is my old one and my new one. Okay, they're both 28 seconds long, but look at the size difference now. If we take a look at the old one and its properties, we'll see that, we'll compare these side by side. So you can see here that this one was set to a data rate of 5,062, and this one here, if we take a look at this one, will be, in fact, only 1851 data rate and 2046 total bit rate. Quite a bit less. 24 frames per second versus 25. Yes, we actually added 2 audio channels, which was silly because there was no audio in the original file, and I could have probably told YouTube not to worry about the audio, but it's okay. Since there's no audio, it takes up no room really at all. At any rate, you can see quite a bit of a difference there, and the quality is going to be excellent. So that's one trick to try when you are working with videos and you want to just simply make the file smaller. Put it up to your YouTube channel, then download it again. At that point, if you wanted to, you could just delete it off your YouTube channel. It doesn't really matter. The other thing you can do, of course, though, is to, instead of doing that, you're going to, instead of putting the video directly on the screen as I did here, what I'm going to do instead is to delete that. And instead, I'm going to use a couple of options available to me. Well, there is a really cool learning interaction that's YouTube in itself, but unfortunately, it seems to have a bug in the current version. In the next version, it's probably going to be fixed and everything will be fine, because it did work really well earlier, but right now it's not at this moment. As of March 1st, 2017, it does not work. But there is... I just want to show it to you so that you can see what I'm talking about. Sometimes learning interactions take a little bit to open up. There it goes. At the bottom, you'll see this YouTube option, and there are a lot of cool options in there, but again, there seems to be a problem with it right now. But not to worry, because if we go up to our objects and choose to insert the web object, well, a web object, you can size it the way you want. Then when you look over its properties, you'll see this embed code over here. Aha. Click on that. And now let's go back to our YouTube here and take a look to see how we can share this. So if we go to our info and settings again, or if we just simply go back to our original right here, we can look at the embed option, and there's my embed right there. If I just copy all of that and put it into this window right here in Captivate, well, you're going to see that when I, did it take, oops, I didn't hit enter, you're going to see that it now will play directly into my window here. I can resize this or whatever, but it's going to be there. So to try that out, let's go ahead and test it. HTML5 in browser or in browser, doesn't really matter. That would be Flash, HTML5, they both should work. We'll try it out. And what we're going to notice though is that it's going to not wait for the video to finish. Play.
Click on each button to learn more about a topic.
And then we went back to Cassie's issue there. So what we want to do is one of two things. Either we have to put a stop on this video and like have a button here that they have to click to go on to the next one, or in this case we could simply extend the timeline to where it's 28 seconds long. And I'm going to do that for one reason alone right now, which is to show you that once you do that, of course, you need to come back to the web object, which is 3 seconds long, and you want to choose to hit Control-E or Command-E on your Mac and show for the rest of the slide. Now, it will stay up there the rest of the slide, but that's not really the solution here, because since they have to hit play to begin with, if they wait too long, it's still going to cut off the video. So rather than do that, I'm going to undo those, and then just simply put a button on the screen. I could put a regular old button, or I can put a button like one of these here. And because that will now have a pause in it, well, let's make sure it does. If I go in here, yeah, I got to pause it. And then this is going to pause. That way I can go ahead and play the video just fine. So we'll try this again. We're going to go to HTML5 in browser and try it out. Let's bring it up so we can see it. Okay, so now we play our video, and we're not going to move forward until we hit that button there. That's an ugly button, but okay. that's the way it works. So yeah, there it is. That's one solution right there to solve your problem, is that put it up on YouTube and let YouTube handle it for you just by putting in the embed code into Captivate. That will make your file much, much smaller because you don't have those videos weighing you down. If that isn't a real option for you for whatever reason, then yes, you will need to try to optimize the video as much as possible. Never make it any larger than it has to be frame size, and use that trick about uploading it to YouTube and then downloading it again and see if that doesn't make your file much better, smaller, and so on. Okay? Hope that helps. Question number 3. Bryan Frame is looking to get rid of the playbar and create custom navigation buttons. And Bryan, I'm really happy to hear that, because I never use the playbar in any of my projects unless I'm just debugging something or testing it somehow, because the playbar allows for a little too much freedom to the learner. Yes, you can, of course, go to the playbar options and turn off things like in the skin editor. I can say I don't want to have the progress bar and I don't want to have the fast forward. You can really customize that, and that's actually not a bad way to go. But if you really don't want the playbar at all, you just want to turn it off, then you need to do it a little bit differently. So if you don't have a playbar, you have to give the learner another way of going from one slide to the next, for instance. And if you don't, it's just going to go automatically from one slide to the next, and then you might as well just have a video, because it's just going to go flowing from one to the next. If you have interactions on any slide, it will stop and wait for the learner to do it, but then again, it's going to proceed along and go to the next slide automatically. If you find that you really do need to give the learner some abilities, let's go back to our slide here. I'm going to get rid of that one because it's kind of ugly. And what you want to do then is to go ahead and create your own smart shapes buttons that will allow you to jump from one slide to the next, etc. Now, I'm not a big fan of next and back, but it seems to be one of those necessary evils at times. The trick is, if I put a button, for instance, a smart shape button on this slide here, let's go ahead and just use a regular old rectangle. And I'm not going to make it fancy, I'm sorry, but because I am not going to be, I'm not really a great artist or anything like that, I really can't make it too fancy. But the nice thing about smart shapes is that you can, in fact, change their fills to gradients, and make those gradients really cool, looking for, I can, do something nice or something really crazy like that. And I can also come here and choose an image to insert there and choose my own image to insert, so that if I take an image, this one here, those images from before, but it's okay, it will sort of serve the purpose. If I do that, it's going to show part of the image in there. I can come back here and say I don't want to tile it, and then it sort of stretches it in there. And if I don't want to stretch it, it will just show part of the image. So all that to say, you can do quite a bit with Smart Shapes. I'm just going to go back to making this a solid fill with the word next in there, but of course you can make the color a little nicer there. Okay, so how do I make sure that this is a button now that the learner can click and go to the next slide? To do that, well, first of all, you have to make it a button. So this is a Smart Shape, and to make it a button, you have to click on Use as Button. The only exceptions to those are these down here, which are already set to be buttons, but any other Smart Shape you create, including your own freeform polygon shape, if you want it to be a button, you click on Use as Button over here. Once you do that, this action category will suddenly appear. It wasn't there before, now it is. Click it off, and the action category will go away. Click it back on, it will come back again. And you remember that actions are what allow you to react to what the learner is doing, in this case, clicking the next button, to go and do something with it, like go to the next slide. Okay, so that's right up here. In fact, that's the default for any interaction, or most interactions, Smart Shapes and buttons certainly. That's the default one, but you can change it, of course. So for that one, if I put it on the slide here, now that's a functioning next button. I can put that on a really nice background and in a little nice panel, whatever, but the point of this is that's all you really have to do to create a next button of your own. And if I were to run this, it will play. I'll prove it really fast by just playing it, and then when I hit the next button, you'll see it's going to go to Cassie's slides from before. So at this point, hit next, and it goes
Click on each button to learn more about a topic. Once complete, click the Finish button.
So at this point, we would have to, of course, have a back button here or some other way of getting back to it. I'll demonstrate to you for just a moment, but I just want to point out that if you heard it, there was that click sound. That's something that really bugs me, but some people don't get bugged by it. Let's go ahead and show you that. The next button here, disable click sound is something I always check. So I click on that, and I also click on the hand cursor so the learner knows when they move over it, it's going to turn into a hand, and also that click sound doesn't happen. Well, again, it's just a pet peeve of mine. So having done that now, if we wanted to have a back button as well, for instance, I could come over to this slide here, and this is in a group now, come to this one here and add a similar button. Now the trick there is I'm just going to copy this one, so I'll copy it to the clipboard, and then I'm going to paste it onto the second slide here. So I'll just paste it now. And all I have to do at this point is to do two things with this. I'm going to need to, hello, where are you? Smart Shape went at the bottom, so I'll put it up at the top. What I'm going to do here is to change the word to back, and then change this to say go to the previous slide. Go to the previous slide. So now I have my back button there as well, and it's going to go to the previous slide. If I put it back over here, I can then copy this one again and paste it. I could have just done it a little simpler, but that's okay. And now I'll have both buttons there, next and back. So if I now were to run this, I should see that they both will work. So I'm just going to, again, HTML5 in browser. I like to test it in the browser because then I'm absolutely sure. So now if I hit next,
click on each button to learn more about a topic. Once complete,
back. Notice that you don't hear the click sound anymore. And because I copied it, that first one, that's why you don't hear the click sound, and you see the hand. Next, back, next, etc. Allows us to go backwards and forwards, okay? So that's one example of using next and back. However, notice that I did have to copy, in essence, those onto each slide. There are a couple of ways you can avoid that. One of them would be to come back to the button up here, the next button, and when you choose it, to choose under the timing option to say rest of project. Well, that means that now it's always going to be up there in the rest of the project. But also notice that when you do that, you want to make sure this place object on top is checked unless you don't care that it's being hidden in some cases. So if I do that, and then I get rid of the next button that's here on this slide, okay, notice that this one is kind of up. So if I want to standardize it, I want to make sure it's in the right place. So in this case, I'll probably just move it back down here, and I can finesse it to where it's going to be lined up pretty well. But there's the trick right there is, you want to make sure that it's going to be in a stable place. All right, having done that then, this button will now stay on the screen from this point on. So when I hit preview and then project again, or in HTML5 in browser, we can test this and make sure it works. Hit next.
Click on each button.
Next is still working. There's the next button still, but we reached the end of our file, so it doesn't go anywhere. So that's one way to do it. It's not necessarily my favorite way though, because notice that first of all, it doesn't go away. Okay, you can erase it through an advanced action or a hide option, but the truth is that there is a better way to do this, and that is to put these on your master slides. Now, master slides are those that, of course, you can use to make each slide look the way you want by using a pattern, depending on whether it's a title slide or a question slide, whatever. You can set up master slides for every kind of slide that you have. If I go to the master slide area, then here I'll see that I have, in essence, this is called the white theme. That's the one that is chosen under themes. And this one here is the title, this one here is the blank. If I go to the blank one, for instance, and on this slide I place my next button again, this time I'll place it where I want it. And this one then I would call this, this one right here, I would call this not just blank, but maybe next only. Okay? Then I will copy or duplicate this slide twice. Once and then twice. And on this slide here, I will call, well, on the first slide, I will call this one back only. And I will change this. I'm just going to nudge it over a little bit using the shift arrow keys. And change this again to back and then go to the previous slide. So back on this one, and this one needs to go to the previous slide, like so. And then on the final one over here, we're going to want to have both. So this one, copy, and I'm going to paste it on this one here, so that now they're right next to each other, and they both should be working correctly. This one goes to previous, this one goes to next. And this one I will call, this one, instead of next only, this will be next and back, like so. So now I have 3 slides that are all pretty well empty. I could, of course, put backgrounds or whatever else I want on them. But when I go back to my film strip now, I can delete the buttons I already had placed there before. So get rid of these and go to this one. Get rid of these as well. And then come over here and get rid of that one. So all the buttons that we placed on individual slides are gone now. And what we want to do is to come to each of these and choose the correct master slide. Notice over here in the properties for each of these slides is the master slide option. So I'm going to choose now for the first slide to have a next only. And there's our button for next only. Come to this one here, and I'm going to choose to have next and back. And then on the third one, I will just have the back only, because this is the last slide. And so what we want to make sure is that the back only is showing up. Now notice in this case that the back button didn't show up. Why? I'm using the correct master slide, because this option down here isn't set on the slide. Master slide objects on top. When you click that, the back button will appear, because otherwise it's going to be hidden. And I can show you that if I turn this off again. When I move this aside, you'll see it is there, but it was being hidden by the big image on top of it. So what you want to do is make sure that the slide properties is set so that master slide properties or master slide objects are on top. Now, besides next and back, of course, you have many other buttons that you probably want to have in there. such as the table of contents and others. But guess what? There are actions for all of those. So if I come down here, I can see that there are actions for showing and hiding table of contents, and then also buttons for changing or changing the audio, muting it, etc. There's all sorts of options in here, and by playing with these, you can create all your own sets of buttons as well. I hope that helped, and we're going to go on now to the next question. Our next question then comes from Buddy Gruy, who wants to know how you can allow learners to skip quiz questions and then be able to go back and answer them after they've completed the quiz. Well, this isn't easy to do in Captivate because, in fact, quizzes are sort of locked down in many ways in terms of what kinds of flexibility you can have with them. So as you mentioned in your email to me, Buddy, you were looking to see how I could do this with advanced actions and so on. Well, that's fine, and I've created a little example for you to see now, but it's not necessarily going to be something that takes no time at all. It takes a little while to do, and then and so I've started the process for you, and I'm going to show it to you now so that you can see how the process is done. So let me explain a little bit what's going on here. I've created a question here that is, in fact, completely done with my own buttons and so on. It's not a quiz question, it's my own question. And while you can assign this to have quiz points, for now it's not set up that way. It's just simply going to allow the learner to answer the question and then submit it and so on. The quiz options here, sorry, I should say that these being buttons though, I just want to give you a hint, you can include these in a quiz down here at the bottom. Even a standard smart shape button, for instance, can be included in a quiz. In fact, any interaction can be included in a quiz. So all you have to do is click that, and then you can assign points to it, etc. I'm not going to go that far for this session today, but I will show you how I set up my exercise, and I will make this file available to you as well. I have a couple of variables up here on the screen that I've created and placed on the screen, and this is just for debugging purposes. You normally would take these out before the learner, before you hand it over to a learner, for instance, before you publish the file. But in the meanwhile, let me show you how this works. When you click each of these check marks that you see here, do not appear initially. When you click on one of these, for instance, you'll see that over here it's showing you a number 1, 2, 3, 4. And the check mark also appears where you clicked. If I hit submit and it's the wrong answer, it will have a specific wrong answer feedback, not Airbus, no, try again. I'll do this one, no, it wasn't Boeing, try again. Lockheed, not Lockheed, try again. And then Grumman, of course, is the right answer here. That's right, it was Grumman. If I then go on to the next slide, okay, that one is done. Now let's say I don't respond to the question, I just go next. Well, next would just take you away from that question. And if I try to submit without clicking one of these, it will say, please answer the question, or click next below to skip it. So then, of course, you do have that option as well. And I think this is kind of what you were looking for. I hope it is. And let me explain a little bit how I built it, and then again, I'll give this file to you. Well, these are just smart shape buttons, and I did create states for them just so that they could be so that when you roll over them and press them, that there is a difference. Now, I tried initially to make it a little more complicated, but then I decided, no, let's keep it simple. So right now, the states are just your normal 3 states: your up state, your down state, and your rollover state. I also, as usual, turned on my hand cursor and turned off the disable click sound. Sorry, turned both of those on so I don't hear the click sound, and I do see a hand cursor. The feedback in Q1, as I said, I would normally just take those out so that they'd be gone, but I'll leave them in for now so that you can see what's happening. But normally you take those out. So what happens is that with each of these buttons here, a different advanced action is going to be chosen. The first one is chose A, and then of course it'll be chose B, chose C, chose D over there. And they all are very similar in nature. In fact, this one here says assign Q1 with 1. So that's the number you saw pop up here on the screen when I clicked on it. Hide the check marks. These are all part of a group down here called check marks. And I'll show you that in just a sec. And then show the specific check A check mark. If I look at the other 3, you'll see that they're very similar. In fact, this is a really good example of something that could be turned into what's called a shared action, which is a topic for another session. When you see a lot of similarities between advanced actions like this, then you start thinking, okay, let's make this into a shared action. All right, so as I said, the check marks are in a group up here called check marks. You can easily group things in Captivate by selecting them and right-clicking on any one of them and choosing group. But you'll see that they are all in here. So when in the advanced action I say hide the check marks, that means hide them all. Well, only one will show up at any given time, but this way I'm sure that whichever one was last shown is going to be erased, is going to be hidden. Not erased, but hidden. And then I show the specific one that should be shown. And that's a really common technique for showing a check mark or whatever else you want to show, where only one should be shown at any given time. So you just group them all, hide them, and then show the proper one each and every time. So what happens when you hit the submit here is that there's a fifth advanced action, and this one's a conditional. And a conditional in this case starts out, in my case here, I start out with a condition that is unconditional. It's 1 = 1. The reason for that is that I want to make sure that this variable called Q1 done that I created is going to be reset to 0. Because if they answer the question more than once, we need to make sure that it doesn't appear that they've already, during the second try, that it's not going to simply get confused. Then, if they had hit A, that means Q1 is equal to 1, because remember we assigned it that in the advanced action that was attached to Boeing. And then we assigned the feedback with, no, it wasn't Boeing, try again. And we assigned Q1 done with 1. So as soon as I actually hit 1, I'm going to set Q1 done to 1. So if I hit A, B, C, or D, those 4 buttons on the screen, great. But if I haven't hit those 4, then it's going to fall into the last one here that says, hey, if Q1 done is still equal to 0, meaning it wasn't set to 1 at any point along the way, we're going to show please answer the question or click next below to skip it. So that's it. I hope that helped. It should get you quite a ways to where you want to get. And if I tried to build out a whole quiz that way, well, it would probably take me a good day or two. But I just wanted to make sure that you knew how to get started with that. Okay, good. Let's keep moving on. Our next question comes from Shuck, who wants to know how to create a zoom for when the narrator wants to learn to focus on a screen element. Okay, there are various ways to do this, but I have come up with one way which I think will serve the purpose for you. Okay, so what I've done here is I've taken a pretty high resolution image, this one right here, and this is actually a low res version of that image. And of that high res image, I have gone ahead and cropped each of the pieces of this image here. So if I go ahead and take a look, I can bring those in and you'll see what I'm talking about. So if I go into here and then here, and this is Jay's, you'll see that I have created these separate cropped images from the original one here. What I'm going to do is to show you how you can use that zoom option along with audio if you wish to zoom out in any particular area. Okay, and you can do this with all of them, but I'll just demonstrate one for now. So what you can do is you can actually use that zoom option, which is under objects, because it really does look nice, and you can actually do something with it that you may not know that you can do. Let me show you what I'm talking about. When you use the zoom area option, you get these two different boxes, right? So you have the zoom, it says zoom source and zoom destination. So the zoom source in our case would be this right here, perhaps, right? And if I look at the zoom destination, when I expand this out, it may look a little bit blurry or whatever because this is not very, high res right here. But here's the trick. If you come over to the properties, you'll see in the options you can add a new image. That makes all the difference, because you can do now is to click on that and bring in the image that is the high res one. So when I click on this one here, for instance, you should see that this image is in better shape. It's a higher res version of that. Okay, so then I can take the zoom of that and place it where I want. For instance, I can put it, say, after almost the 3-second mark, and I can have it last as long as I want as well. So the zoom out will happen and stay on the screen for as long as I want it to, and then it can go away. What I can do then is to right click on that zoom and add audio. The audio I'm going to import then is the, in this case it will be the Mercury audio, because that's describing what this is right here. When I close this, if I now preview this, you'll see just how it works. You'll see that after almost 3 seconds, it's going to zoom out and then play the audio.
This is the Mercury Safecraft.
So, looks pretty good, looks pretty high res there. And then after a while, it would go away, except that, of course, our project ended before it could. But yes, if I were to make it go away at this point, it could. And you could just string those along, but if you wanted to, on the other hand, just have the audio narration as one big track, you don't have to add the audio to these. You can just simply time these to where the audio narrator is speaking. If you don't want to go that route, and I think it really is the easiest and best way to do it, then you can simply just have the high-res photo, for instance this one here, appear as an image in the same place as the zoom. The only thing is you won't get that zoom effect of coming out. So I kind of like using that zoom source for that reason. But otherwise, you could do it just by placing the image on the timeline where you want it to match it up with the synchronize it with the narration. I hope that helped. Okay, let's get to our last set of questions, let's say, because this is Dickmar Tejada is trying to figure out two different things. One is how to create an exam where questions are chosen from a pool randomly. Some of you may already know how to do this. And the second is how to resynchronize a lot of audio in a file after the audio has changed. Okay, so let's start with, of course, the questions in pool. This is a pretty cool feature of Captivate, and that is that you can set up your questions into pools and then randomly choose from them. So what I have here is a file that I've created that has, let's see, 78 or so, 76 different questions in them. These all happen to be multiple choice, but it doesn't really matter. And if we go into our quiz and check out the question pool manager, we can see that Captivate does have a built-in pool called Pool 1, which is not very descriptive. And you could, in fact, put all your questions into one pool and then randomly choose from them. That would solve the problem of course, people trying to cheat and so on. In essence, you're just putting all the questions into one big pot and then randomly choosing from them. But you don't have to stop there, because you can actually create several different pools. In fact, as many as you wish, I think. I've never tried to go much past 3 or 4 because it kind of defeats the purpose. But if I were to have, for instance, categories of questions like these are easy questions, these are medium level questions, these are hard questions, then randomly choosing from them from one big pot may mean that one student, one learner gets a lot of easy questions and another one gets a lot of hard questions, and that wouldn't be quite fair. So you could say, I'm going to put all my easy questions together, all my medium, all my hard, and then say I'm going to give them say 4 of the easies and 5 of the mediums and 3 of the hards to everybody. But it randomly chooses each of those from the pool. So everybody's going to get 4 easy questions from the easy pool, but randomly chosen, and et cetera, for the others as well. So that's another way to do it too. You could divide up your pools into subject matter. If you had a test that was covering, say, I don't know, physics and biology and chemistry, you could set up pools for that too. I'm going to go ahead and just I'm going to rename this one here easy, and then I'm going to create a second one and call this medium, and I'll do the same thing. I'll do another one and call this one hard. So for the moment, we're just going to presuppose that the questions I'm putting in these are easy, medium, and hard, but of course you'd have to be a little more selective about the questions you're putting in those pools to make sure that those truly are easy, medium, and hard. Now, you notice over here that you could go ahead and just start adding questions into your pool directly, but I hardly ever do that. Also notice that you can import a GIF file. That's another story, which in fact, if you look up here under quiz, you'll see that there's an import GIF format file. Maybe one of you might want to ask me about that for the next time I do this. All right, having said so then, I have set up my question pools, again, easy, medium, and hard. But all my questions, as you noted, are all in the film strip, so they're all the students are getting these questions. But what I can do now is to actually move questions into different pools. So for instance, I can take this first question, and if I right click on it, say I want to move that question to, oh, there they are, easy, medium, and hard. Those are the pools that I created. So I can say, for instance, this one's a hard one, so I'll put it in there. And now that actually came out of the film strip. It's not there anymore. It's now down here in the question pool called hard. And if I drop this down, you'll see there are my pools again. And if I click on this one, later you're going to see how you can bring these into a test form. Okay, so I'm just going to, for the moment, choose the first 25 or so, 24 or so, and I'm going to put them all into the pool called easy. And so all of those are going to come out of my film strip now, and they're all going to be now in my easy pool. There they are, okay. And I'm going to take the next bunch and put those into the medium pool, move questions to medium. And finally, I'll put most of the remainder, but not all of them, into the hard pool. And I want to show you why I'm not putting all of them in there. I'm going to put these here into the hard pool. So that leaves me with just two questions in my film strip, this one here and this one here. Okay, so having said that, if I left these in the film strip, then every student would see these, period, right? Because they're on the film strip directly. But what if I want to add a random question? Well, that's where I come up to my quiz options again and say I want to choose to insert a random question slide. And when I do that, it's going to immediately insert a random question based on whichever pool I have open down here at the moment. But if I decide, no, that I want the first one to be a medium level one, I can just come up here to the properties and choose to make that a medium level question. And once I have one of these in here, I really don't have to keep going up here and saying, give me another one, give me another one, give me another one, because I can just simply duplicate these, right? So if I duplicate like so, and then I choose to, I'll choose both of those and duplicate them again. And then I'll choose all four, duplicate those another time. And so now I'll just choose those 8 and duplicate one more time. Because that's going to give me about 16 questions, in fact, exactly 16 questions for my quiz. So every student is going to see this first question. Oops, I just grouped them. We'll see this first question. And then they're going to see a bunch of random ones. And then at the end of it, they're going to see this one exactly the same. Everybody will see this exact same question. Now, once I've duplicated these, of course, now they're all set to medium, but I can decide now, well, this first one's going to be medium. The next two should be easy. So I'm going to select them two, come over here, and choose to make those easy. Now you'll see that those are linked to the easy. This one's going to be hard, so I'll make that a hard one. And then so on. I can just continue doing that and choose to make my some of them hard, some of them easy, whatever I want to do. Now, again, this is just one example of categorizing the questions, because you could do it by subject matter or other means, but that's that. Now, having done that, you now have a pretty well randomized set of questions in here, except, of course, for this one, which we forced to be the same for all, and then the last one as well. But it doesn't really matter. You could have none of these kinds of questions, none of them that will be seen by everybody. You could have them all be randomized. That's totally up to you. So if we were to preview our file right now, we'll see that the first question will always be the same, and so will the last. But the ones in between will not be. And as I said earlier, this is a pretty cool feature of Captivate. Now, one thing you should know is that you see it says writing the question pool file. When you are publishing this, every question and every pool that you have in this file does have to go into your published file, because it's going to randomly choose them at runtime, when the learner is actually taking the test. So that means that you will be inflating your file if you choose to have very large pools of questions, because you really want to make them totally randomized. Just keep that in mind. Don't go too crazy with the number of questions you have in each pool, because you could really inflate the size of your published file. Not to say it's a terrible thing for that to be, but still. So as I said, this is the first question we're going to see on every slide. Every time we run this file. I happen to know that's the right answer there. So I'll submit that. It says that's correct, and then we'll move on to the next one. Now this one's going to be randomized, about how long is a day on Saturn, and I'll just choose one at random because I don't really know the answers to these. No, that was wrong. And the next one, etc. Which space shuttle carried Hubble to orbit in April 1990? I don't know, maybe it was Discovery. Yay, it was Discovery. And so on. So as I choose these, you'll see that that the questions are coming up. And how do you know they're in random order? Well, because when I run this again, you'll see that the first one will be the same, because that's not one that's randomized, but the other ones will be different, okay? And the best way to really test this is to publish the file, so it doesn't have to go through this procedure every time. But when you publish the file, you can then run it as many times as you want, and you'll see that the questions are going to be different every time, even though you don't have to go through this process of generating every time, because it has to do this on the sly when you're previewing the file. It's actually doing sort of a publish. It is doing a publish, but then it erases it immediately afterwards. So that's why we're having to wait now. And you'll see how much longer it takes when you're previewing a file that has large numbers of questions. And in my case, I have 78, I believe. If you happen to include like several hundred, each one with maybe some images or something, well, you're going to have a large number. So there's our first question, same as before, 29.5. But now, hopefully, we're going to see a different question next. Aha! What makes the moon rise? Magic. What makes the moon rise? The Earth's rotation, I guess. And so on. So now the next one is certainly a different one as well, and so on. That's how you set up randomized questions in a pool. And each person in this case is going to get 18 questions, because that's how many we put onto our onto our film strip. The first and the last being set questions, the rest of them being randomized. But it's as simple as that. Now, if you change your mind about something in a pool, for instance, you say, well, this one here really is not an easy one. That's really a medium one. I can right-click on it and say move the question again to medium or hard. But notice you can also move it back to the main project, which means it's going to go back into your film strip and not be randomized anymore. So there's a lot of flexibility here, because you can change your mind about questions and move them to different pools, or even back onto the film strip when the time is right, if you feel like you need to do that. Finally, I want to point out that under the quiz options again, you have the ability to import question pools, which means that you can open any Captivate file that already has questions and question pools in them, and be able to import them directly into your file. It doesn't change the other file in any way. You're just simply importing any question pools from there, or questions, and you can choose however many questions you want out of those, the other file, or whole pools for that matter as well. So that kind of covers, I believe, the that question that you had. And now let's go on to the next one, which is synchronizing audio. So in this case here, what I've done is I've created basically an image file, which has, let's see, 9 slides in it. And each one is your standard 3 seconds long, okay? So it doesn't really matter. But what you would do ahead of time is, typically, is you're going to synchronize your audio that you're going to bring in to the slide lengths. So if I decided that this first slide should be up for 7.3 seconds before the slide changes, I would do that. Why am I doing it here? Because then what I can do is when I bring in audio, and if that audio is, for instance, covering the whole file, I'll bring in Vivaldi's Estate here. If that's covering the whole file, meaning this is going to be one long audio track, I can synchronize my audio to the slides by having the slide themselves be timed correctly so that it's going to synchronize. Why? Because when you bring in an audio file that's longer than your slide, it gives you options here. And the option I will choose in this case is to retain the current slide duration. You could do this, distribute the audio file, but I'll show you how that works in just a second. So retain the current slide duration, I click OK, and now I'll see that all of these slides have an audio track on them. And in fact, all of them have retained their current slide timings. That's still the 7.3. The rest of them are still 3 seconds long, except for the last one, which is going to have all the bulk of the remaining audio on it. So this one goes on for about 1 minute and 41 seconds, looks like. 41 seconds. So once you've done that, you remember that other option that says you want to time the slides yourself. Well, you can go to audio here and choose to go to edit, and then edit not the object or slide, but edit project. And when you do that, you're going to see a warning that says, by doing this, you're going to lose your closed captions. It's okay for the moment, I don't have any. And in fact, I don't suggest you put those in there until you do this. But now what you'll see here is, if I zoom this out, is you'll see that all of my slides are in here. And now I can move each of these slide markers to where I want them to be in my file. So I can distribute them. Sorry, I can just move this over and put it where I want, put this one where I want, etc. And if I do that and then save it, the slide timings will change for 7, 8, and 9, and 6 as well. So if I go back to those now, I'll see that 6 and 7 are not going to be 3 seconds long anymore. They're going to be longer depending on what changes I made there, and so on. Now, I hope that answers your question, but I still have a little doubt, because what you may have meant is that within a slide you may have, for instance, a long audio track, and that you have synchronized elements to it, but now that that audio track has been re-recorded, it's not lining up anymore. There's really not much you can do about that, except to, of course, do it on every slide. Move the object so that it's being synchronized correctly on the slide to that object. So unfortunately, there's not much you can do about that. But hopefully, the ability to edit all the audio in your file at once can really help, because that at least will get you to the point where your slides are being divided up correctly. All right, well, that wraps it up for me today. I hope that you have found this helpful. If we come back to our list here, we covered all of these, how to stop audio from repeating when returning to a slide, and that required a bit of a variable, in essence, and an advanced action. Lee Bandy wanted to know how to stop playback of videos, and I gave hopefully some good suggestions there that you're going to find helpful. Bryan Frame was asking about how to create your own navigation buttons so as to avoid using the standard playbar, and I showed a couple of examples of that. Buddy to Gruy wanted to know how to skip quiz questions to be able to go back and answer those, and I explained that that really wasn't possible using the quiz options themselves, but he already knew that because he asked me in his question, how would you do that with an advanced action? So I showed you a bit how you would set that up. And then Shuck wanted to know how to do the zooming, and I showed an example of doing that. And Dickmar at the end was asking about creating an exam randomly chosen from a pool and how to synchronize audio in a file after the audio has changed. Well, that's it for this week, this edition. I look forward to seeing what questions you have for the next one. I'm going to try really hard to make sure that the next one is delivered on March 15th, so get your questions in now. I can't guarantee I'll get them all answered in the next edition, but I'll always try to. And if you ask me a question that has an extremely belabored answer, I will let you know that so that you don't expect me to try to cover it. But anything that I can cover within a reasonable amount of time, I certainly will. I hope you found this helpful, and I look forward to talking to you next time. Have a great March, and we will talk soon. Bye now.